The sixth of this in this series is entitled Critical Thinking, which you may not have been taught about at school. Critical thinking consists of the disciplines of reasoning, the fallacies involved in reasoning, and the use of evidence and explanation. And whilst it is in itself a year-long topic at an undergraduate level, if you're doing a philosophy course, this is intended in a couple of minutes to give you the basis of it. If, like me, you're obsessionally interested in it, then there are lots of materials available, or you can just ask me. It's about the following. Well, let's just start with an example. Many people would use a piece of media, like eating fish and chips makes you fat, or eating fish and chips makes you obese. And that's quite wrong. What we want in critical thinking is for you to use information, evaluate it, and then use it accurately. So, a standard portion of fish and chips in the average fish and chip shop in Leicestershire contains about 1,500 calories. The EAR, estimated average resource required by an adult human being, is about 2,500 calories a day. So there are fewer calories in a portion of fish and chips than the average human being requires in a day. So that can't be used as a piece of reasoning in itself. What you need to do is to unpick it and say things like, taken on its own, it doesn't exceed the EAR, but in context of what most people do, it might do. That's intended to be a fairly fatuous way of getting into this. Reasoning requires that you recognise that you are arguing for a conclusion. There are indicator words. If you can find should or therefore in an argument, it tells you that that's what the conclusion is. Everybody should do the Congregational Federation's course on practical theology is the conclusion to an argument. The reasoning for that is indicated by another word, because. So the reasons are because. Everybody should do the Congregational Federation's course on practical theology because the world needs more people who can do practical theology. So that's the way a structure of an argument works. When you're writing, or when you're even preaching, should tells you that that's what your conclusion is, or therefore, because of the reason that you're given. Be clear. Fallacies are what surround this sort of thinking, particularly theology. There are lots of them, hundreds of fallacies, but an example is it's called a cause correlation fallacy. Every time I go into a room, it feels cold, therefore there must be a ghost, is a cause correlation fallacy. Every time somebody reads The Sun, they become very right-wing, would be a cause correlation fallacy. The two things may coexist, but you need to reason between them. There are lots more, I'll get back to those in a minute, just in case you lose the will to follow. Evidence and explanation. When you're doing the sort of thing that we expect you to do here, you will be required not to provide opinions, but to provide reasoning, which requires you to give reasons, and the reasons need to be supported by evidence and explanation for the evidence. Evidence is things that you can acquire from sources which are authoritative, and explanations are why it is that you're using them. There is much more to this, but that provides you the basis. So, the evidence that I started off with, the rather lightweight example of fish and chips, there is no evidence for what I said at all. The evidence is that fish and chips contain 1,500 calories a day would require you to say where you got that from and why it relates to your argument. I'm going to leave that there because it's fairly self-explanatory. Other fallacies that you might want to avoid are the following. The ones that are common in theological reasoning. The first one is called tu quoque, Latin, so I won't use it again. It means you also. Somebody does it, so I can do it too. Roberta always fails to hand her homework in, therefore I'm going to fail to hand my homework in. There's a lot of that in theological reasoning. Somebody did it, so therefore I can do it. Another example is the attacking the arguer rather than the argument. Standard explanation here is Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton must have been a terrible president because he was a multiple philanderer, doesn't follow. You're attacking the argument, you're not saying why is a bad president. Slippery slope arguments. If I don't get 95% in my next assignment, then I will fail the course. If I fail the course, then I'll be a total disaster and will end up on the streets begging, is a slippery slope argument. The big one in theological argument is the general to specific fallacy, where you make a general point and take a specific example out of it. All Christians believe that, and therefore I must believe that. You know this one very well. You have been told that you can't be a Christian because you do X, because all Christians must do it. So all Christians believe that they must be pacifists, therefore I can't lose my temper, is a standard example of that. It works the other way around too. Specific to general, this person is a good member of the Labour Party, therefore all members of the Labour Party must do the same thing. So all members, this person has bought a big issue, therefore all members of the Labour Party must buy a big issue. It doesn't work that way around. And another example from theology is called the fat oxen driver. Just because the oxen is fat doesn't mean that the person who's driving it must be fat too. All Roman Catholics go to Mass, therefore I must be a Roman Catholic because I attend Mass. I may have attended Mass because I'm interested in what goes on. Those are the sorts of things to be aware of, and the intention as part of this course is that as you go around doing it, you will become increasingly aware of critical engagement as you go about your business. Have fun.